Ihor Brusylo is a Ukrainian politician and diplomat who served as Deputy Chief of Staff in the office of the Ukrainian president since 2021. He previously worked in several government and parliamentary positions, as well as the Ukrainian embassy in Italy. Recently, he assisted President Vladimir Zelenskyy on his trip to Washington, D.C., where they met with US President Donald Trump.
Mr. Brusylo, welcome to TVP World.
Hello to you from Kiev. Thank you for having me.
Now, Russia's invasion of your country isn't going to end anytime soon, is it?
Unfortunately, well, the very near end is not in sight, and it's not on the Ukrainian side. President Zelenskyy reconfirmed it many times. He's ready for peace talks anytime, in any format. And, well, he is ready and available for the peace to be reestablished and be back to Ukraine.
Now, you've said there that President Zelenskyy and Ukraine are doing a lot for peace. Is there anything Ukraine isn't doing or could do more to bring this war to an end?
Ukraine is doing everything what it can and what it should. And it's on President Zelensky's shoulders to declare this intention to bring this war to the end. And that's what he is doing, actually, by traveling in Europe and going to the United States to rally this support behind Ukraine, behind himself, saying to Putin, sending this message across that, well, Ukraine is available to stop this war, and let's start with a ceasefire, the most feasible and most viable option as of now.
And you've been with President Zelenskyy on so many of those trips. You were in Washington with the president. The meeting with President Trump has been described as a shouting match where President Trump swore and called Russia's invasion a special operation. What are you advising to President Zelenskyy to do next with the US leader?
Well, actually, the dialogue is on, it's active, and there is a good rapport between President Zelenskyy and President Trump. No matter what you can hear on write or read from the mass media, the situation is a little bit different, because when you gather and when you start talking, this is a frank talk. It's a frank conversation, and you exchange your views on the position, how it stands. You deliver your messages about the real state of affairs, and the other side is trying to argue about that and trying to get more information. And when they get this more information, they sort of understand this better. So this is a practical dialogue, and there is no need to say that it should be mush and mellow relationship. Not at all. But this dialogue is active and meaningful, and I cannot agree that this meeting was a shouting rout.
So you were there. How would you describe that meeting? How would you describe the interaction between President Zelenskyy and President Trump in Washington?
Well, the fact is that President Trump had this phone conversation with President Putin before the meeting with President Zelenskyy. It did not contribute, of course, to the success of the meeting from the very scratch, from the very beginning. But in any case, well, that was a good starting position also for President Zelenskyy to deliver his message, because the situation is fluid, it's changing in Ukraine and on the battlefield. And the truth is that there are no special gains that Russia is declaring they have on the battlefield. And that was an exchange of practical facts about what Ukraine needs to make more progress and to be more successful, not only on the battlefield, so at the table of negotiations.
There was a perception, though, that that phone call with Vladimir Putin really changed President Trump's position, or at least his perspective. Is it not frustrating for you and for Ukrainian diplomats that one single phone call from Putin can undo months of your work?
Well, this is a ploy and gimmicks that he is used to use in dealing with leaders in the world, and many of them are well aware of that. And every time he seems to be losing the situation, he employs these gimmicks to show that he is back in the game. Sometimes he is successful, sometimes he is not. And that was the point, that he thought he would be successful, but the case turned to be different. Yes, that was not an easy conversation, but that conversation was absolutely meaningful. And when the parties departed, I mean the President Trump and President Zelenskyy, everyone understood that their each positions was heard enough to understand what the next development will be.
Now, I was reporting in Kiev, where you are now, when this phone call happened. One of the outcomes, of course, was a potential meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin in Budapest. That now seems to be off the cards. Do you think President Trump is being played by Vladimir Putin?
Well, it's in the opinion of Vladimir Putin that he is playing with President Trump, but the truth is opposite. And it's good to think that this meeting never happened, and it should never happen in Europe.
So you think President Trump should never meet with Vladimir Putin in Europe in the current state of negotiations?
That's right. I believe that would be a disrespect for Europe, and it will not give advantage to President Trump.
Well, let's speak about Europe, your European partners. One thing, although US support may be changing, President Trump's position will describe it as fluid. One thing you could rely on, you have relied on since the start of the full-scale invasion, was European support. We've seen reporting in the last few hours of a coalition of the unwilling, with Hungary, the Czech Republic under new leadership, Slovakia, led, of course, by Viktor Orban. If the US is unreliable and Europe is only going to become more gridlocked because of this coalition, who can help Ukraine?
Well, everyone can help Ukraine, including Czech Republic, Slovakia, and including Hungary, no matter how strange it may seem now. But Europe should be united, and there is no need to disunite or to say that somebody is against all others. That's not a good game to play. Well, and I cannot say that President Trump does not have this influence over Hungary, and Viktor Orban will be in the White House on November 8th. They will have this conversation, and I believe that President Trump will use his arguments to talk to Viktor Orban and to see that there is unity in Europe. Nobody needs Europe disunited in this case, and no less Ukraine needs Europe to be disunited.
Would you encourage President Trump to tell Viktor Orban to stop buying fossil fuels from Russia altogether?
Well, it's in the interest of all Europe, and everyone will have their reasons to place and try to defend its position. But that's what Europe is doing now. It's a united decision, and if this decision is a unanimity, then it should be stuck by everyone in the European Union.
One change in US position, of course, is that financial support has dried up. Of course, they were selling weapons where perhaps they would have been given in the past. We've discussed European support maybe wavering a little bit. The European Union not known for being particularly quick in its processes, of course, a frustration I'm sure you have. Is there a risk, frankly speaking, of Ukraine running out of money?
Well, that's the common state of affairs. This is the common game. We need to finish it together. Ukraine now is not alone, and I hope that this will not be the case the next year if the war continues. So Ukraine is at the forefront, and it contains the danger of this war spreading over to Europe. And the Euro-Atlantic space should be united. There should be a strong and final response to stop this war. And we rely on our European partners, on ourselves, and on the United States of America to make this war end.
There's also 140 billion euros worth of Russian frozen assets sitting in Belgium right now, which could be loaned to Ukraine. The European Commission wants that to happen. Other European countries want that to happen. Belgian Prime Minister saying no. What's your message to Prime Minister De Wever?
I think this is more like a financial engineering. There is a good option for this money to be used by the European Commission as a non-contingent loan. And this money can be used as a collateral as a compensation of the Russian Federation after the war ends. If this money is not paid back by Russia, then they remain frozen and they will continue to generate profits. So this is no losing game. And everyone wants to have this legal certainty that they will not be left alone. And I believe this will be the task for the European Union to convince that Europe stands united. That was the alliance that was meant to be a single one, and no one should be afraid that the one or another country will be left alone.
So Prime Minister De Wever, the Belgian Prime Minister, is wrong to block this new scheme?
Well, he is not wrong. It's the process. It's not over yet. He wants to make his position clear, and all other European leaders are heeding to his position, and they're trying to make sure that this response will be a united one when the time comes, for example, that Russia may present its claims that they want this court case to be started, when it is about money. No, this should be ensured by everyone, and it should be safe. And I believe it's about more justice than anything else.
We last spoke a couple months ago. I was in Kiev. You welcomed me to your offices. We also discussed Polish-Ukrainian relations. Would you say they're better now than they were a couple months ago?
We are destined to have good relations. We are close neighbors. We are next door countries. And we are grateful to the Polish people from the very beginning. What they have done for Ukraine and continue to do. We will remember this forever, for generations to come. And this relation should be based on a mutually respectful attitude to our history, to our culture, to our countries, and we are open in our relations with the Polish people and the Polish government and the Polish president, and we would like to have the same attitude from them. And I believe, my personal conviction is that the level of our relations is the best.
Well, you said to me a couple months ago that you would like Polish President Nawrocki to visit Kiev. The sooner the better, you said at the time. His top advisor now says that if President Zelenskyy wants to meet Mr. Nawrocki, he should come to Warsaw. Is President Zelenskyy willing to make that first move and come here to Warsaw?
Well, we agreed to exchange these visits, and when President Zelenskyy and President Nawrocki had their first phone conversation, they just agreed that President Nawrocki will visit Kiev. That was just, an agreement between them, and we are open with all our welcome President Nawrocki to Kiev. I think this will be a good advantage also for him to visit Kiev, and he is always a welcome guest, and welcome to Kiev, Mr. President.
But if the requirement from Mr. Nawrocki is for President Zelenskyy to make that first move and come to Warsaw first, would he be willing to do that?
I think then they have called each other once again and to talk whether they will have to change their previous agreement, the first agreement they have made on the phone call.
Mr. Brusylo, I'd like to end on a perhaps difficult question, but one I ask many of our experts when we speak about Ukraine. It's a simple question. When do you estimate this war in your country may end?
Well, it depends only on one person in one country, in one building, about when he is ready to do that. On our side, we are ready to do it immediately.
Ihor Brusylo, Deputy Head of the Presidential Office in Ukraine and advisor to President Zelenskyy, thank you so much for speaking to TVP World.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for watching. I've been Alex Cadier. Take care and stay safe.